Hello, and welcome to another warmonger of an episode of Info Hazard. With me are my two co-hosts, Phil and David, and I am, of course, Dan, here to bring you the facts, the speculation, and whatever else we can think about. The bombing of Venezuela and possible war, invasion, 51st state, who knows? What do we have to say on this, boys?
It's really up in the air, at least at time recording, but we are either now the sovereign rulers as Americans of Venezuela, or we're internationally wanted kidnappers, or we're liberators who have returned Venezuelan order to a brand new golden age. Kind of hard to say at the moment.
The one thing we know for sure is that the administration is lying like crazy about everything, and they have been every step of the way.
Damn,
I wouldn't say they've been lying about everything. I'd say that press conference that Trump did right after the kidnapping was a big old truth bomb. He just came out and said it was all about oil and just getting the oil out of the ground and creating a vast amount of wealth in oil and taking the oil, and how America was getting ripped off and we were going to get the oil. Cards fully on the table after he got the guy.
Even wars like the Star Wars sequel trilogy of wars, dude. Like zero originality or subtlety. You just straight out say what your point is. Nobody wanted it. It's just a complete shitty redux with zero originality from the previous edition.
Imagine the vice president watching Maduro get airlifted out of the country was like, they fly now? They fly now.
I guess this is the sequel of the bombings in Cambodia, where I assume that's the original that was better. I feel like the main difference here is that they didn't try to hide it at all.
I was going with Iraq War as the original, we're just going into an oil-rich country, overthrowing the ruler.
Sorry for the deep cut. I mean, I feel like in Iraq, big difference between Iraq and this is they actually got authorization from Congress, which is where Congress learned, which is when they learned they never want to have to give authorization for wars. And so that's probably why Congress Spine Watch is returning crickets so far. Have you guys spotted any spine in your observations of Congress lately?
Well, they're on break for the weekends, so they'll go to work and pick up their spine Monday, I'm sure. Or they will have done that by the time this episode releases.
All right.
There's been the usual statements from Democrats saying, oh, this is terrible. We would totally vote to stop this if there were enough of us to do it.
And I know Marjorie Taylor Greene expressed the displeasure with it, just in time for her to leave with her nice
Isn't she
retirement.
Interesting these days.
Perpetuity.
Someone put it to me pretty funny that she had a negative Fetterman moment. She must have been bonked on the head. And now she's just she's a centrist Democrat now.
Just kind of goes to show the character that our politicians possess. So we have a few topics within this Venezuela hazard episode that we wanted to go over. Let's start out with the case. So I've been jet lagged this week, so I've been up at 2-3 in the morning reading random government documents like the actual indictment.
You know what's good for that? The jet lag, I hear, is if you wear a blindfold and put on big sort of gamer headphones and
hop in an
ties.
airplane.
Yeah.
Also, it helps to be traveling mostly north and south, not the east-west travel. The Trump administration is lying and saying that this was an arrest. They were just, serving a warrant? Is that the term?
I guess
they were serving a warrant. They were serving a warrant, and just like in your town across America, the way they serve a warrant is first with airstrikes. Usually kill upwards of 50 people when serving a warrant. So anyway, they were serving a warrant, they say. And there was an indictment. And it turns out narco-terrorism is an actual crime. So at least that, I thought that was just
a buzzword.
Yeah. I thought it was one of these meaningless words that these guys throw around. But it is an actual crime. I was looking into this some. It turns out having kidnapped them from abroad is not grounds for dismissal. So I think, isn't that a due process thing?
Well, before we
Nothing?
get into this narco-terrorism case, I think the the like pressing charge on that indictment was possession of machine guns. That was part of the indictment, is that Maduro and his wife were in possession of illegal machine guns and therefore needed to be extradited from the country.
They needed to be bombed.
Yeah, a man in charge of a national army was in possession of machine guns and therefore was a threat to himself and others and needed to be whisked away at the cost of, the lives of 50 or so people who were tasked to protect him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plus, it's, extra ironic because last week he just pardoned the ex-president of Honduras, who was literally in prison on a 45-year sentence for cocaine and weapons charges.
Right. For
Trump pardoned him, and he
same
was
charges.
freed from federal prison.
Yeah. So,
pardons for others, airstrikes for others than those.
and that's why I said earlier that the one thing we do know is that they're lying a lot. And I mean, almost to the point where it's almost seems to be intentionally transparent, just because it's as people play along with these lies, they are implicating themselves in a way. Anyway, yeah, it's ludicrous that this is his motivation. And yeah, like you said, he's like, oh yeah, the oil too.
Yeah, the oil has been a huge distraction in terms of the takes and that I've seen, because everyone's talking about the similarities or dissimilarities between this and the Iraq War. But in terms of the details of the case, this is a lot closer to the extradition of Manuel Noriega. This is a sovereign leader of a country who was kidnapped by the United States, also for drug trafficking charges. But even in that case, George H.W. Bush did get authorization from Congress to do that. If you're looking for precedent, could Congress have kept a lid on it? Apparently they could have. So it's a bit of a weak excuse to not tell Congress about this, because we've already done a very similar thing and gotten away with it.
Huh, I haven't heard of that one. That's interesting. We'll dig into that. I'm curious how, I was just thinking about the case. I was looking is this case gonna, are they gonna win this case? It is a real, despite the fact that Trump has gone and pardoned someone for the identical crime, last week, it is a serious crime that he's accused of. But so the only two obvious dismissal options that I came up with was that he's a foreign head of state, and in theory they have immunity, and also that it's politically motivated prosecution. I think this is a fun little legal theory to chat about.
Also, did they have jurisdiction to make the arrest? The U.S. can't just arrest people in other countries without their permission, right?
No. So jurisdiction has to do with where the crimes were committed and the crimes that are alleged. They're being tried in New York because they say he's used American financial systems and money was routed through New York. And I think also the law, that the other thing in the law that makes that a non-issue has to do with that the harm was directed at Americans.
Right, the drugs and stuff ended up in American hands. I think they would have the jurisdiction of wherever the final product ended up.
But also, I mean, Congress has passed a law specifically to allow this, this kind of thing. I feel I kind of wonder what sort of competence, just given the track record of this DOJ and the way that they fired lots of people, and given the high quality work we've seen in the release of the Epstein files.
He's getting acquitted, isn't he?
I can't help but feel he might just get acquitted. It would be amazing if one of these early dismissal things, they're just this is a politically motivated prosecution. He just pardoned someone for the exact same crime. What if, anyway, starting off with strong speculations.
Yeah, if there's anything the Trump regime loves more than lying, it's losing cases. So, there's a very strong possibility that even after all that, they would still lose this case.
What's Lindsay Halligan gonna take this on?
Pam Bondi will personally prosecute, dude. One of the finest legal minds in the nation. Is she even barred? Does she have a law degree?
I think she's a lawyer. I thought she was one of Donald Trump's lawyers.
I mean, it could be. I have no idea what her background is. I thought she was on Fox News, but
doesn't seem to give much of a shit about the law that much.
Right, but that hasn't really helped her in terms of winning cases.
Right.
Yeah. Well, but the cases that her boss gives her to prosecute are tough ones, to be sure.
Hey, look, you know what? This is a prestigious position. You gotta be able to win these potentially fraudulent, frivolous, or illegal cases.
Who says we don't make things in America anymore, dude? We make fraudulent legal cases now, dude.
So what do you guys think? What are the chances Maduro walks free?
I mean,
Pretty low.
pretty low, just because, it would be very embarrassing for the Trump administration, so I think they'll try pretty hard to stack the deck against him legally.
Yeah, we still got Gitmo. Like, we hold people without charges all the time,
Okay.
especially foreign nationals.
All right. Okay. So forget
Okay.
walks free. Let's just say, wins, gets the case dismissed or is found not guilty in the.
The way I could see him winning is like if he delays it a really long time and then Trump's successor drops the charges. He
Well,
just
yeah.
draws the case out for years.
Huh.
Yeah, but like 3 more years or
mean,
10
federal
more
cases
years
take a
after
long time.
a few more Trump terms. Like, I don't know.
Not funny. Not funny. All right. Moving on. Speaking of long-term consequences of Trump's actions. So we run Venezuela now. Quote, "We're not
Apparently.
afraid of boots on the ground," Mr. Trump said. Asked who exactly would be running Venezuela, he said, "The people that are standing right behind me," and he pointed at Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth. "We're going to be running it."
Yeah, very fine people. Some of them in the military will be running Venezuela, or are running Venezuela. That was his claim. We are currently running Venezuela.
There was a funny quote in a Reuters article I read that was, "Trump offered no clear picture how the U.S. would fulfill his vow to oversee Venezuela, something critics quickly condemned as neocolonialism and which would risk alienating some supporters who oppose foreign interventions. Much of the U.S. State Department's Western Hemisphere office was caught by surprise by Trump's remarks, and no preparations have been made for sending staff to Caracas," 2 U.S. officials said.
Right. I think that Marco Rubio did the rounds on cable news and was asked to explain this. And he was basically saying, well, we're going to continue to threaten them, he said, in more words, less bluntly than that. But the point is, like, they better watch out. And is this some like popular hip hop song or something? Like he effed around and he found out. Sounds
Just
like
a phrase in the zeitgeist.
Yeah, anyway, it's what cool tough guys say. So anyway, they're very tough. That seems to be the plan. Continue to threaten them. And I mean, even Trump referred to a second wave that was ready to go but was unnecessary for this strike.
I mean, gotta imagine they're so like it's insane to want to take this and then move in troops, but like that's what we're gonna have to do if we're gonna fulfill the promises of going into the country, having American oil companies extract the oil that Trump says he's going to. The only way you're going to do that is if you take them by force. Like Venezuela.
Well, surely you don't think
people
America
are not
or
gonna-
Americans are going to be unpopular in Venezuela in the near future? That seems crazy,
think-
right? I'm sure we're endearing ourselves with all these bombs.
You know, interesting. It's an interesting sort of question. What do Venezuelan people think? Obviously not a monolith. I saw some opinion polling that, it's basically split, like, I don't know percentage wise, like total, but like Venezuelan exiles on the whole are happy. The majority of them are happy that Maduro is now no longer in charge of the country. But, opinion polling within the country, obviously like a bigger population, but is not in favor of the U.S. strikes. But, then again, like they don't like have as much like press privileges and stuff like that. You can't really be expected to always give like a straight opinion on this sort of question. So I don't know.
Plus, if we've learned anything from America, it's that the more government by Donald Trump that you experience, the less you like it, dude. His whole first term, his approval is going down. He lost the election. Everyone forgot how much he sucked. He got reelected. Now his approval's been trending down the whole time again. So
Yeah.
if we govern Venezuela for a while, they certainly won't like us, would be my guess.
I'm just like always marveling at the gifts that Trump is given that he immediately pitches right in the bin. Like, he is in charge of the most powerful and fearsome military of all time, and they executed something absolutely amazing and unheard of in human history. They were able to successfully infiltrate the country, do a couple of airstrikes, take out the guards of and extract the president of a sovereign nation, and then made it
Zero
out
casualties.
with 0 casualties. That means no injuries and no deaths. That's incredible.
Was that right? No
I mean,
injuries?
I don't like it. I don't think it's good, but it is an impressive feat. And like, that is such a gift for his regime. And he's going to be like, all right, that's good. We got this. Now we're going to go back in and we're going to get some American soldiers killed by holding oil refineries to send money back to myself. Like, that's just such a huge punt on what could have been an easy win.
So I heard a theory that's like different than that it's not so much about us keeping the oil for ourselves or taking it for ourselves as keeping it away from our rivals. And that's, and that's a very I don't know, that makes sense to me. It makes more sense than, right, like what you say, that, like, I don't want to underestimate the depths of their stupidity, but sending American troops to Venezuela to guard oil companies as we start stealing their oil seems like it would be really unpopular and likely to be unsuccessful and expensive, et cetera, seems like a huge disaster. But it should be easy enough to stop them from sending oil anywhere else. Maybe that's the point.
Like, a surprising potential opponent of this might be, is Chevron. America is the largest oil producing nation. Like, we just are able to extract the most oil. We are the biggest producer, and we have been for a little bit. We passed up Saudi Arabia because of the shale oil revolution. We got better methods of extracting oil from reserves that we weren't able to access before, and now we produce the most oil. If we find like a sudden new source of oil with new techniques and we're able to pump a lot of oil, it's going to reduce the price of oil available on the market, which potentially impacts their profit margins. So they might not even be interested in being given these favorable contracts in Venezuela if they're going to have to, expend blood and treasure to defend them, and also are going to drive their own prices down in the process. Like, they might not even be interested in this sort of contract.
So there's a bright future. Obviously huge chaos. The thing that is certain is that there's high uncertainty, that there's high risk, and, things work out. Like, this strike worked out perfectly, which is the best possible outcome that there was going to be from this. Like, that, a lot of that is luck. And, we could be headed for a quagmire in Venezuela. We really don't know, and it's a huge risk, and so
I don't know.
I don't appreciate large risks being taken with no plan.
Yeah, I think long term this isn't the best case scenario. If it went down in flames like Bay of Pigs style, that might have been the best case scenario, like long term.
I don't think so, but fine. I mean, like he said they were ready to go in with another wave, right? Who knows? Like, there was no scenario where Maduro was staying in power, right? Like, given that they were ready to do this.
You never know. 2 of the helicopters, they were trying to bring in the teams to see them crash into each other, and it's a whole different scenario, right?
Right, yeah. Like, if it went really poorly, the idea of intervention might be so unpopular that they think twice about doing it again.
Yeah, I guess the word would have gotten out. Like, yeah, that raid into North Korea in Trump's first term that they just never published. Like, these things, special forces operations go wrong. They don't always work.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah, so what else can we say about the bright future of Venezuela under America's
it's contested. Trump claims that we're running the country now, but the Supreme Court of Venezuela, I think it's something else, they declared the vice president as the interim leader of the country. But yeah, there's like people, like armed groups in the streets, colectivos, kind of like fighting potential rioters. There's a good chance that the country devolves into further violence over this.
Right. I mean, it is logical to think that the various opposition would see an opening, right? But yeah, so far it seems like, they just went in and pulled out the president and his wife. They didn't. Mm-hmm. They didn't, go after the generals or the people who actually maintain order there.
Yeah, so. I mean, and like, it's a fairly decentralized government at the moment. Things are pretty bad inside Venezuela at time of recording. I mean, they will be when you're hearing this, I'm sure. Unless you're hearing this in like 30 years, in which case, hi, how did this all turn out? Let us know in the comments. But yeah, things were already bad, so local bosses of colectivos were taking over for a lot of government functions that basically boiled down to just accepting bribes and, bullying people. Like those people are still in place.
Really boiling
Though
government down to its essentials there.
they derived their ostensible authority from the central government, and if the central government collapsed, then it could just be like a greater collapse throughout the system, and potential civil war, or maybe things work out. Who knows?
Yeah. It sounds like you've thought about it a lot more than Donald Trump has.
Yeah. So I saw a lot of speculation as to who would run the country before, or Donald Trump gave that press conference, and there was some speculation before the conference about who would run the country after, and a lot of people thought it would be the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Corina Machado, because she was the opposition leader in Venezuela, though she didn't win the 2024 election because she was barred from running. Her chosen successor, Edmundo Gonzalez, won the vote by like an independent tally that was backed up by Reuters and Associated Press. So it was people are thinking, okay, well, we knocked out the head of Chavismo, the ruling party. I guess America wants to install this opposition party as like the new government, maybe. But Trump laid those fears to rest, or hopes to rest. But he said regarding Maria, I think it would be very tough for her to be the leader if she doesn't have the support within or the respect within the country. She's a very nice woman, but she doesn't have the respect within the country.
Presumably he means she doesn't have the respect of the military. I mean,
potentially.
Sorry, not to say that he means not that he's having coherent thoughts and communicating them outward with words, but she obviously has a lot of respect within the country if people showed up and voted for her overwhelmingly over Maduro in an election, or voted for her proxy. So yeah, she does have respect, just not from the people that Donald Trump gives a damn about.
I don't know exactly what Trump meant by that. My impression is that he just doesn't like her because she won the Peace Prize and he didn't. That's just my opinion.
That does bring us to international implications. I think the Nobel Peace Prize, it's basically a lock for 26 that Trump's got it now, right? I mean, there's no...
How could he lose?
Look at the consequences. Look what he did when he didn't win it. We're basically on the hook to give it to him.
Or else he's going to escalate even further, dude.
Yeah.
Invade a bigger country, maybe drop a few nukes.
He's already threatening Greenland, Cuba, Colombia, and Mexico after this strike. So who knows? He's going to invade countries until he gets that damn Peace Prize.
Quick, go to Polymarket. What are the odds on which country is getting invaded next?
My God.
Interesting that you mentioned that, but there was a spike on either Kalshi or Polymarket before the invasion happened, of whether or not U.S. would invade Venezuela. So some insider at the White House did go cash a bunch of new accounts and make bets on this to make a quick buck. It's the party of fiscal responsibility. If they let that opportunity go to waste, then how irresponsible would that be?
Yeah.
Really, they should have the U.S. government be betting, right? And they can save a little bit of, they can reduce the tax rate because the government makes money on betting, right?
I was thinking when I first saw that this had happened, as with most things that Trump does, it was sort of depressing, and it's wow, the world is worse than it was. How bad is it? Do I need to move to Singapore?
Well, the fear, I think, for a lot of people is that with this move and the Trump administration moving away from EU, they put out a big policy document pretty recently about the world they want to move to is where there's only a few big powers and the EU is split apart, and they want basically just the few big powers to kind of run their regions. And this is a move towards that. We are taking control of our hemisphere. He made a lot of references to the Monroe Doctrine, putting his first initial on the Monroe Doctrine. where there's no intervention beyond like the Atlantic on Western Hemisphere stuff. And we consolidate power in our region. Are able to bully whoever we want in Central and South America. But yeah, like if that's the case, then countries that are in danger of being invaded by the other great powers are potentially at risk. Like Taiwan is a big one. China making big moves, like
Taiwan and
a
the
lot of training
Philippines.
exercises, like simulating the invasion of the island.
Ukraine, Poland.
Yep, Ukraine, Poland, from Russia. The big military powers are potentially going to be given free rein to invade their neighbors. And that would be bad on the whole. It would, like, Ukraine has been able to resist for 3 years at immense cost their country. It's like a absolute hellscape on the front lines of that conflict. And so many people have died. And we're just entering a world where we're potentially creating, if we just tick off Taiwan and like Poland to like that, like we're like 2 more massive in wars of conquest.
Phil gives 2 thumbs up.
Yeah, 2 thumbs up. I love yeah, like this is bad. I mean, and the implications don't stop there. I mean, Saudi Arabia could invade and like conquer Yemen, or like we could completely back off Israel and they could drive Gaza into the ground, more so than they already have, I guess.
I mean, right. It's like a whole sort of like the rules are, we don't give a damn about the rules. So do you think that we're going to see more nuclear proliferation?
Certainly seems like the smart move, right? If you don't want to get invaded.
Yeah,
the only people who are...
It's like the time, but that's famously not a fast process. If countries are worried about that, like nuclear powers are worried that their non-nuclear neighbors are going to be getting the bomb, we might be seeing some sort of preemptive wars of conquest.
Yeah, it feels a little World War I-y to me. It feels like everyone's just going to be out attacking everyone now. We're just going to be fighting big wars all over the place. And that's what they seem to want, right? The president of peace.
From a practical standpoint, like a big reason, I think, just total realpolitik here, that we don't do this kind of thing, make these big interventions and do these wars of conquest in Latin America, completely laying aside the moral aspect of it, is that if we get locked down in a war in our hemisphere, we can't react to stuff around the world as well as we potentially could. And as this sort of world police force, we do pose a threat to other nations that would potentially, we could protect our allies if we're out there on the sea. You think the
Denmark
US
feels protected by us right now, dude?
The U.S. strategy that we're moving away from is going to not work anymore if we get bogged down in wars at home.
Not at home exactly, but
yeah, like I think also like a war in Venezuela would affect Americans a lot more directly than like the war in Iraq did, because we already kind of feel the effects of Venezuelan emigres coming into this country. Like the big waves of migration cause like huge social change in the United States. And if we were actually fighting our neighbors like that, it would be, I don't know. I don't know how it would affect us. It would be a bigger deal, I think.
Well, so it's a developing story. I'm sure a lot's going to change. Even we're going to do our best to get this video out, but it'll probably be called Donaldzuela by the time we do get it out. Congress, welcome back. Hope you had a nice holiday. Do your damn jobs.
Imagine that, dude.
Yeah.
All right, that's been another slam banger of an episode. Leave a comment, like and subscribe.
Yeah. Let us know just how far behind we were on releasing this episode and what major world events happened in the day or so it took us to edit it.